Some names once stretched across the world's maps for centuries, then vanished as if they had never existed. No recorded battle, no signed treaty marked their end. Just century by century, the letters on maps faded away, replaced by new ones. The memory of them sank into complete oblivion. Tartaria was one such name. It once appeared in merchants' journals, explorers' reports, and carefully drawn old maps. Today, it survives only as a faint ink stain in archives or as folktales dismissed as myths. Who decided to erase it? What was so dangerous about it that it had to disappear? Ancient origins. Before Tartaria appeared on 16th century maps, it existed in scattered notes in ancient records. Chinese Tang and Song dynasty chronicles spoke of distant northern lands home to nomadic tribes who lived on horseback and moved with the seasons. These lands were described as harsh in climate, with winters so long that snow covered the ground for most of the year. Yet they were also rich in furs, minerals, and horses known for their strength. Islamic records from the 12th century described similar regions inhabited by Tatar or Turk tribes, living on endless steppes. They were portrayed as fierce warriors skilled in both trade and conquest, able to move armies across vast distances quickly. This made them both feared and respected. European medieval manuscripts recorded stories from merchants who adventured into lands beyond the known world. To them, this was a place of mystery, sometimes tied to religious legends. Despite coming from different cultures and timelines, these records shared key points. The huge size of the territory, the people's bond with horses, their skill in warfare, and the existence of organized settlements. The Mongol connection. The 13th century changed everything. When Genghis Khan's cavalry swept across Central Asia, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe, most Westerners could not distinguish between the many tribes and lumped them all under one name: Tartars. The second R was likely a European addition, making the word sound like Tartarus, the deep abyss of punishment in Greek mythology. Chronicles described armies on horseback, moving like the wind, shooting with deadly precision from the saddle. Cities were besieged and destroyed in days. Yet mixed among these fearful images were notes about strict military organization, relay stations for messengers, and road networks linking major centers of power. The Great Maps. As the Mongol Empire opened trade routes and communication lines across Eurasia, the name Tartaria took a firm place on European maps. When Marco Polo traveled deep into Asia, he described bustling cities, massive fortresses, and relay stations where merchants could rest and continue their journeys. Mapmakers from the 14th to 16th centuries began drawing Tartaria with confidence. Maps showed it as a massive block, sometimes taking up nearly half of Asia. The region was often divided into zones: Great Tartaria, Muscovite Tartaria, Chinese Tartaria, and independent Tartaria. This reflected reality. After the Mongol Empire broke apart, its former territories still shared cultural and commercial links. Merchants' tales. As trade routes grew more secure, European merchants and envoys set foot in lands they had only heard about in legends. Italian, Polish, and Russian merchants spoke of market towns where caravans carrying furs, spices, and fine crafts converged. Cities like Samarkand and Bukhara appeared in European accounts as part of the greater Tartarian sphere. Western explorers wrote of massive fortresses guarding strategic points along riverbanks. These structures were more than defensive positions. They were way stations and protective hubs for traveling merchants. Many reports noted strong organization: gate guards, storage warehouses, and water systems within the walls. Accounts often emphasized diversity. Alongside nomadic tribes were long-settled communities speaking multiple languages and practicing different faiths. Islam, Buddhism, Orthodox Christianity, and Jewish communities all engaged in trade and skilled crafts. Remarkable architecture. Travelers described enormous dome structures with spans stretching dozens of meters, built from precisely joined stone or fired brick. There were towering spires capped with metal that gleamed in the sun, and massive stone bridges with perfectly shaped arches. Public works drew equal attention. Travelers described vast bathhouses with separate hot and cold water systems, and assembly halls lit from high circular windows. Most intriguing were structures whose purpose Westerners couldn't explain. Towers with metal columns on rooftops connected to frameworks that resembled transmission systems. The universal style. One striking detail emerged from comparing reports. Structures shared a near-universal architectural language. The most recognizable feature was the onion-shaped dome, often set atop tall bases and richly decorated in multiple layers. Accompanying the domes were slender spires, sometimes connected by metal or stone frameworks. Another element was proportion. Tartarian buildings appeared to follow strict geometric principles. Whether church, palace, or town hall, the symmetry between height, width, and decorative detail was precise. What astonished observers was the reach of this style. It appeared in Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Kazan, but also in Warsaw, Istanbul, San Francisco, Chicago, Sydney, and Melbourne. Advanced technology. Technical mysteries hidden inside these buildings raised provocative questions. Metal poles, sharp-tipped finials, or antenna-like structures mounted atop domes and spires could potentially collect or transmit energy, a concept later explored by scientists like Nikola Tesla. Heating systems featured complex air ducts and ventilation channels embedded under floors or within walls, designed to distribute warmth evenly. Some buildings had heated floors and water systems with ceramic or metal pipes running deep beneath the ground, connected to large reservoirs. The Great Disappearance. If in the 17th and 18th centuries, Tartaria sprawled across Asia on maps like a vast block of color, by the 19th century that picture began to change. Tartaria's territory on official maps contracted year by year, decade by decade, until it vanished entirely. This transformation was not tied to any clearly documented political event. There was no Tartarian war or treaty of dissolution. It simply disappeared from maps as if it had never existed. The same areas became labeled as Russian Empire, Chinese Empire, Kazakhstan, or Mongolia. The Mud Flood Mystery. Walk through old districts of cities like St. Petersburg, Moscow, or even San Francisco, and a strange detail emerges. Many buildings have windows at ankle height or below street level. Often, the buried portion still carries full decorative detail. Carved moldings, patterned brickwork, even doorways that have been sealed. Early 20th century photographs deepen the mystery. Some show streets being excavated, revealing bright, fully finished lower levels with intact windows and doors. This phenomenon appears uniformly across many cities on different continents at nearly the same elevation. The mud flood theory suggests that sometime in the 18th or early 19th century, massive flows of mud and sediment swept across parts of the world, burying the lower stories of thousands of buildings in a matter of hours or days. Supporters point to possible causes: volcanic eruptions, large-scale earthquakes, or extreme weather events. The Erasure. No gunfire, no grand proclamations, just inventory lists and small slips of paper pasted to book spines. Do not circulate, inaccurate, or obsolete reference. In the 19th century, National Archives systematically reviewed older materials. Any document using the term Tartaria was quietly moved into restricted storage. In libraries across Europe and Russia, 17th to 18th century atlases clearly marking Great Tartary were replaced with updated editions. The originals were placed in separate collections, sometimes rebound so readers wouldn't recognize them as different. Educational systems were overhauled. In Russia, official textbooks replaced Tartaria entirely with Siberia and Russian Central Asia. In China, regions were presented as administrative divisions of the Chinese realm. Western educational atlases labeled former Tartarian territories as Russian Empire or Chinese Empire. Universities reinforced the shift. Research papers had to use new terminology to be accepted. Any scholar attempting to write about Tartaria risked being labeled unscientific. By the early 20th century, virtually no one questioned Tartaria's disappearance from maps. Folk memory survives. Though the name was erased from maps and textbooks, memory survived in another form, in stories passed down through generations. In Siberia, the Yakut and Buryat tell of builders of cities from white stone who lived before the north was buried in ice. After a great calamity, some say a sea of mud. Others speak of fire from the sky. The cities were abandoned. In Central Asia, oral traditions recall a great state stretching from sea to sea, with stone-paved roads so well laid that a horse could ride for weeks without losing the way. In Eastern Europe, old songs speak of a northern kingdom home to monumental works that no one today knows how to build. These legends don't contradict the image of Tartaria seen in old maps and Western merchants' records. Instead, they fill in missing details about daily life, the scale of cities, and the sudden disaster that led to collapse. Modern investigation. The internet transformed everything. Digitized old maps, archival photographs, and discussion forums allowed enthusiasts worldwide to connect. Images of half-buried buildings, maps marked Great Tartary, and excerpts from old travel logs circulated widely. Modern technology opened new avenues of investigation. Overlaying old maps onto satellite imagery reveals faint geometric shapes beneath vegetation. Straight lines or perfect circles suggesting buried foundations. Digital elevation models identify unusual topographic features too regular to be entirely natural. Online image archives from national libraries prove invaluable. Late 19th and early 20th century photographs show the same architectural traits across continents. Half-buried windows, domes, spires, and perfectly symmetrical civic squares. Global connections. When photographs from cities worldwide are compared, striking similarities emerge. The Kazan Cathedral in St. Petersburg, Melbourne's Town Hall, the Boston Public Library, all share perfectly symmetrical plans and domes elevated on high drums. Urban layouts follow recurring patterns. Central squares surrounded by major buildings connected by straight avenues. From a technical standpoint, many old structures use the same type of precisely joined stonework and uniformly fired bricks. Some buildings retain underfloor heating, concealed ventilation systems, and integrated water channels, features that exceed the technological norms of their supposed construction periods. Historical implications. If the Tartaria hypothesis holds true, our understanding of historical progress must be dismantled. Our trajectory may not have been a steady climb from primitive to advanced, but a cyclical pattern of reaching peaks and then collapsing. Many of our modern achievements, global urbanization, standardized architecture, intercontinental trade networks, might simply be repetitions of what existed centuries earlier. This reframing changes how we view other ancient civilizations and challenges the credibility of disciplines that study the past. The question of truth. Acknowledging Tartaria's possible existence doesn't require abandoning critical thinking or accepting every theory. It means applying the ability to verify evidence, cross-check sources, and remain open to adjusting conclusions as new data emerges. The story of Tartaria, whether fact or legend, is a mirror held up to the relationship between humanity and memory. It shows that we are not only products of history, but also its authors, sometimes preserving truth, sometimes burying it deeper. The legacy. Perhaps Tartaria's truest legacy is the reminder that truth never walks into the light on its own. It appears only when someone has the patience, courage, and readiness to face it, even if the answer shakes everything they thought they knew. The largest question still hangs like a cloud. If undeniable evidence of Tartaria were revealed, would the world dare to face it? Would we rewrite whole chapters of global history, or would we cling to familiar accounts because they're safer and less disruptive? Each generation looking at the dust-covered silhouette of Tartaria must decide. Will it let the figure remain forgotten, or will it dare to dig deeper, no matter what might be found? In a world still filled with historical gaps, maintaining critical thinking and an open mind will be key to safeguarding humanity's memory against the erosion of time and against hands that would shape it to their own design.